Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Matthias. I'm so happy that you joined today for our webinar. I'm a trainer for software engineering methods. That means I help teams get their software done on time and with good quality and without losing their minds and still having fun, right? Today, I want to talk about a special topic called let the domain drive the software, not the other way around. This is because often we do it the other way around. We simply give some software that we think is okay. As software developers, we produce it and give it to our users and other domain experts, and they suddenly say, no, that's not what I wanted. So, yeah, common misunderstandings happen between domain experts and developers. And today I want to talk about how we can avoid that, what we can do. If I ask our domain experts, they always say software is not an end in itself, right? It's a means to an end. It solves a problem or it must be fun. Like video games, for example, video games are a billion-dollar industry. Best thing is to do both, solving problems and having fun. So software is not an end in itself. Other industries, for example, the office furniture industry with their tables and chairs and everything, they understood this. They are running user studies. They are really looking at people sitting on those chairs, and they found out, for example, the head needs to look slightly down to the monitor, so that the monitor should not be too way up. Otherwise, you will get pain in the neck. And also the arms and legs will have to have these 90 degrees angles, which is most comfortable for the users. So they are doing it. And I always think we should do more of this as well as software people. We should listen to our domain experts much more so that we create the right software for them. There is a method you might have heard about. It's called domain-driven design. Domain-driven means we let the domain drive us while we create the software. And I want to talk about a bit about this in this short webinar. I'm giving trainings about this where I can say much more, but today we only have half an hour, so let's keep it short. Let's first talk about how not to do domain-driven design, right? Let's assume, for example, I want to create a website for whiskey fans. Whiskey fans are people who love to taste whiskey, to talk about whiskey, to drink whiskey with friends. So let's say they care about whiskey. I want to make a website for them. So as a software engineer who doesn't talk to anyone, right? We are very quiet people. I simply go to the supermarket and buy a bottle of Jack Daniels. This would also, whiskey fans would now say, Matthias, you made your first mistake because Jack Daniels is not the best whiskey in the world. But whatever, I simply take the bottle, I open it, I find out, yeah, whiskey is liquid, must have something to do with the water inside. And I also find out when tasting it, okay, tastes moderately good, so must be something to do with the sugar inside. And if I drink more of it, I find out it makes me drunk. That mostly because of the alcohol inside. And I also could discover as an engineer, I could further analyze this and find out these are made of three components, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And I can explain the entire whiskey with these three basic elements. I would say, wow, now I'm happy. Problem with this is I will have left my fans behind, right? The whiskey fans, that's not their language. They are not interested in C, H, and O. They're interested in different things about whiskey. I could even go on with this and go totally astray. Like, for example, I would talk about sugar. Look, this is the simplest form of sugar with 6 carbon atoms and so on, and nobody would be interested. So people who start naively into software development often do it like this. They are very excited about technology. They tell their users all kinds of performance aspects and everything. So, and the users might not be interested. They would say, hey, does it solve my problem or doesn't it solve my problem? And this leads to 3 very common pain points that I wanted to share with you today. I heard developers tell me, we created some good software, but the domain experts said they didn't want it. We created something they didn't want. Oh boy, that's a big mistake, isn't it? Big misunderstanding between domain experts and developers. I hope they won't react like the gentleman in the middle who's throwing away his computer, totally frustrated. But that's one big pain point that I hear often. The other one is we created software that was overly complex for what was really needed for the domain experts, right? The domain experts and users tell me what they need, but we created something that was too complex for them and too complex to maintain over time. Or management, people from management, they tell me, oh, our team spent way too much time doing Scrum meetings and whatever, coordinating the work, and it's all a big hassle. One team needs to wait for the results of another team, and it takes a lot of time. So they are not happy with the coordination effort. Interestingly enough, these are the three most common problems that we hear about all the time, and they can be solved via domain-driven design. Let's have a look at that. First one would be we created some software that, that the domain experts didn't want. And domain-driven design proposes a solution here. It says, don't separate domain experts from developers by requirements, for example, but let them do it together. Invite the domain experts to join the development teams and create a domain model together. Now, what's a domain model, you might say? Let's first have a look at what a domain is. I've brought three examples here, like, for example, the logistics domain happens in the port, in the harbor, or the chess domain, where with chess players playing with pieces on the board, or the online shopping domain that my wife is very familiar with a credit card, right? She buys things by putting them into a shopping cart, then checking out, paying, and giving her delivery address. So all these kinds of the domains, they have special knowledge which is required. They have to listen to some influence, for example, from the lawmakers. Or they have to run some certain activities in the domain. If we look at this and we bring domain experts and developers together, what would this mean for the whiskey example I gave you before? Let's do a little bit of practice, right? Not so much theory today. Let's create a domain model here on my table. I have some pen and paper. So let's create a domain model for a whiskey fan website. First of all, let's contact the domain experts. So if I ask whiskey fans, what are you interested in? They will obviously say that's whiskey. And I might ask them, where does whiskey come from? And they say, okay, it comes from a distillery. The people who make it, distillery, okay. And I might ask them, where does that live, this distillery? It's in a certain country, the whiskey fans say. Okay, so distillery is in a country. What kind of countries? Yeah, for example, there's whiskey from Scotland. There's whiskey from Canada. And there might also be whiskey from the US, Tennessee, something. So different countries who have distilleries that make whiskey. And I might also ask, what's a distillery about? What do they take as a raw material, for example? And the whiskey fans say they take barley in the form of malt, for example. So I would record this. So I'm listening to domain experts. They keep telling me things. And I capture them in a model here on the piece of paper to turn the words into knowledge. I want to have more knowledge. I'm still learning about the whiskey domain. So I could go on for a moment. I could ask what kind of whiskey is there? Like, for example, they might say, okay, we have Scotch and we have bourbon. And I also might say, what's so super interesting about whiskey? And they might say, it's the taste. Every whiskey has a different taste. I could ask, could you give me some examples about the taste of whiskey? And they might say, yeah, let's say we have got 3 examples here. It might be earthy, right? Or it might be smoky, tastes like smoke. Or it might be even spicy, right? Tastes like spices. Different kinds of whiskeys have different tastes. And they become pretty excited. They could go on and on about this. So that's what we can learn by talking to people. So we should really make contact between domain experts and developers and capture these domain models together. Domain experts can work on the same model as developers. It need not be the developers alone who are doing this. So this would tackle problem number 1, all these misunderstandings which result in software being created that isn't wanted by people. So that was the first one. Let's tackle the second one. Teams keep telling me we created software that was overly complex for what was really needed. And domain-driven design, in this case, offers a solution that says, create some Lego-like standardized building blocks so your teams know exactly how to design simple enough software, but not too simple, that really fits the domain. Complexity in the domain has to be transferred to the software, right? But let's not add further complexity, which is not needed. Let's have a look at these building blocks. I took the Lego pieces as examples here. So you may have heard of all this. You can build software from services that contain aggregates, which contain entities and value objects and so on. All these nice little objects where you can build software from successfully. Even the biggest software can be built from these 9 building blocks. Interesting. I could talk on and on about this, which I do in my domain-driven design trainings, by the way. And if your team understands these building blocks and knows what they look like on their platform, it's really easy and straightforward for them to build with this. Problem number 3, when management tells me our teams are taking too long with coordination efforts, it's mostly because they work on a big model, which is a kind of mistake, right? You shouldn't work with lots of teams on the same model. And domain-driven design says here, work on several small specialized domain models instead of one big one, one big unified one. What does that look like? Let's, for example, have a look here. Let's have a look at the meaning of the word customer or the meaning of the word product when we look into the sales context or a sale or a support context. People from sales, they might say, oh yeah, products and customers, that's really cool because we can sell products to customers and can make a lot of money with that. Support people might tell you a different story. They might say, these products, they have defects and the customers keep calling us and we need to help them. And oh, wow, customers and products are really difficult. And one is not interested in the model of the other. So sales not interested in support, support is not interested in the sales model. Solution is to have separate teams who work in so-called separate contexts, which I could tell you exactly in my training. This would be interesting to talk about. So this would be a solution for the coordination problem. Let everyone work on their own models. Let each team have their models, where the other teams have nothing to do with this. And this makes everything much faster, much more independent. The teams become more autonomous, can do their stuff. It's really interesting what happens when we do that. Yeah. What can we do with DDD? I wrapped all this up in one nice little slide. The first pain point was we created software that wasn't meant to be created, right? So this could be solved with a domain model that we do together. Domain experts and developers, they talk this ubiquitous language, this language that's talked everywhere, spoken everywhere, and they understand each other much better and reduces misunderstandings. The second one, we created software that was too complex. This can be solved by the DDD building blocks, works like Lego. And the third one, it takes too long because of all this coordination that has to be on the same model, this can be solved by creating different smaller models using a technique called strategic design with bounded contexts, which I could tell you more about in my DDD trainings. It's a very effective method. So that's basically it. This is what the 3 pain points and the solutions that I wanted to share with you today. And we're now open for questions, Aslihan, right?
Yes, exactly. People can ask their questions by writing. You can click the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, or you can just raise your hands or and ask your questions verbally. All of you are allowed to talk. Yeah, we already have a question. Can you also see the question, Matthias? Or
Yeah, I can see it. Zed is asking, what are the big challenges of DDD? Yeah, big challenges. First of all, introducing it. DDD is a quite broad method. It reaches from the first talks that you have with domain experts via creating the model, then implementing it, and then releasing it and talking about it. So it's a pretty broad method, and you should really start small. Most people start too big. For example, using the 9 building blocks is a good idea to start locally in your team. You don't need any permission for that. You can simply do it. But for example, if you're using strategic design to cut these smaller models and decide which team is working on which, you might need permission from management. So this is a step for later. Don't start in a too complex manner. And talking to your domain experts is a really good idea. You can do that. You will need their permission because the real domain experts, they are very busy. They have a lot of meetings in their calendars, and they might say, I don't have time for this. This is a new job for me. That's not my job. So yeah, this is also a challenge to get this collaboration going, right? But once it starts, it's a lot of fun and very effective. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Right.
cool. Are there more questions?
we had a poll, a quiz. We already asked you a question of which of these typical pains occurred in your company, and you have some pain points. We can see some pain points in here. If you have some questions related to these pain points, you can also ask these questions.
Yeah, these are pretty common pain points. I hear them from a lot of people from several companies, especially insurance domain, for example. Many insurance companies recently started and said, we want to create big models for our entire insurance company, right? And I said, whoa, this is a mistake. Please stop that. Create smaller models for different bounded contexts. And they say, no, we prefer big models. So, oh boy, that's hard. Yeah, I see another question here by Jimmy. Can you give a little more details about those building blocks, or is it too much for a short meeting? Yeah, yeah, I could go into a lot of detail, but the basic idea is you create services. So one building block is called service. You put these services into modules. Oh, let me draw a picture here. I can draw it on a piece of paper. So, for example, you create a big module. That's one of those building blocks. Then you create a service. In the middle, you have your aggregate. building block. And at the bottom, you have a kind of repository where you keep your data. Repository is another building block. And this makes your module, right? Let's say I'm only using 3 building blocks right now. A service could be, for example, a distillery. If I take the whiskey example, right? A distillery search service. The aggregate could be the distillery itself. And the repository could be the catalog of distilleries, right? Distilleries, okay. So the user calls the service and says, search some distillery, giving some country, for example, Scotland. And the distillery repository says, yeah, I will find this in a database because this thing talks to a database. And then it returns the aggregate as an aggregate of the distilleries found in a certain area in Scotland, for example, and returns it to the user. Sorry? Someone was talking? Okay. Yeah, that's one example for using these building blocks. And you can use the other 6 as well, or the other 5. I'm using 4 here. The other 5 building blocks as well. It makes you really effective because you can standardize them. You can say, okay, on our platform, a service looks like this. On the other platform, a service looks different. It looks like this. So if you have some rules for this, they speed up your software development. Does this answer your question, Jimmy?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we're done with this.
Do you have any more questions? Maybe we can wait a little bit more, then we can continue.
Okay. Yeah, these building blocks, they are quite exciting. They can be used with clean architecture or with hexagonal architecture or with onion architecture. So it fits very well into the agile architectural styles that we have today that you might have heard about.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess there is no more questions. Okay, if you want, we can continue with the next slide.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, I want to give some more information about the iSAQB DDD course. Our next possible session will be on March. And we also have 8 different sessions during 2025. Yes, you can click and go to our website and you can see all the details about our sessions. And actually, we have a special offer for the attendees. If you are interested more about domain-driven design, becoming expert, or obtaining a certification, we have 30% off on our next event on March, actually. If you want to go on another session instead of March, you also have 20% off for all our iSAQB DDD courses in 2025. Actually, this 30% offer means approximately 700 euros less than the normal price, and it's the biggest offer in the market. And this discount is valid until the end of February, actually. And on the other side, if you're not sure which iSAQB course to choose, you can check out our Techie AI iSAQB suggester. You can find it on our website under the iSAQB section. It's an AI-generated tool, and it provides very accurate suggestions. You can try it, and I am also adding the link in here. You can click and go and try it. And if you want to get PDF version of this presentation and the details we discuss, you can get in touch with us via email or LinkedIn direct message. Then we can share the document with you. If you have any question, you can feel free to reach out to us. For updates on our future webinars and other developments, you can continue to follow us on LinkedIn and other social media channels. Let's keep in touch. Thank you, Matthias, again, and thank you everyone for your participation. I found this webinar interactive and learned something new, and it was very beneficial for me. I hope you also found this webinar effective.
Thanks, Aslihan,
thank you.
for this nice invitation.
Thank you all.
Thanks for being here, all attendees. Thank you.